Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jayne Ellis and I'm the founder and director of EF Training. I'm a nurse by background. I trained years ago. I'm not going to tell you how many. And I stepped away from my frontline role about 7 years ago now to set up EF Training because I recognise that we need to spend a bit more time looking after ourselves because we are universally very bad at caring for ourselves when we care for other people, are we not? So that's what the training is. So what I'm going to talk to you about is a little bit about what compassion fatigue is, a little bit about what we do, and then we're going to do a little bit of self-care at the end. So you're going to need to move at that point, just to give you a little bit of a heads up. Right, here we go. These are your new recruits for your workplace. They look really happy, don't they? Very happy. You've recruited them. You didn't tell them they had to wear pajamas for the next couple of years of their life, but, you know, they're okay. Or sometimes very bright pink or something, but, you know. So they're very happy. And then what's the first thing that happens when you get recruited? You do lots of training, don't you? Yes. All of this training, our lovely statutory and mandatory training, which we really, really love, don't we? We love it every year. We really look forward to that email that says you've got to go and do it all over again, as if you can't remember what you did to start with. I think after I did fire training for about 10 years, I'd kind of got it by then, you know. If it's bigger than a wastebasket, you run away, basically, don't you? That's what it is. Now, you do all your lovely training, and then off you go, and you think that the job is going to be absolutely fantastic, and everybody's going to love you, and you're going to have a wonderful time every day, and everybody's very grateful for everything that you do, correct? Yes. Hand on heart, you probably didn't actually know what the job was when you did it, because it has so many different facets to it. But although I'm making a point, it isn't always what you expect it to be. And what happens for a lot of people is that the reality of how it makes you feel is quite different to what you expect it to be. You do expect it to have an emotional impact on you, but the problem that I have, and the reason that I am doing what I'm doing, is that we don't get any training for the emotional impact. We get lots of training in how to bend over properly, wash our hands, and all of the other stuff that we do, but we don't get any training for how it actually makes us feel. And the thing is, when we work in health and social care, as I've done for many, many years, we're not actually employed for our ability to be able to wash our hands properly, are we? We're employed for who we are. We're employed for our compassion and our empathy and our ability to make that strong therapeutic connection with somebody that means that we are able to care for them and for them to trust us, so that even if we're doing something to them that is unpleasant, they still feel safe in our hands. Because we don't have training in the emotional impact, what can happen to us over time is we start to experience something called compassion fatigue. It doesn't mean we don't care anymore. That's not what happens. What happens is that we start to realize that the stress of other people, what we're experiencing on a daily basis, their stress, their trauma is affecting us. And this is one definition of what compassion fatigue is. Now, some of the risk factors for compassion fatigue are quite obvious, actually. The first one is just being a human being. Because human beings, we like to make an empathetic connection to another human being. And when we do that, and we do it well, their stress and their trauma affects us. And that very primitive part of our brain picks up on the other person's stress, and it says to us, if that person is stressed, then maybe there's some danger to us as well. And that's called vicarious trauma or secondary traumatic stress. And that affects every single person who is looking after another who is in pain, either emotionally or physically. And we can't get away from that. The second one is working in a job where you are exposed to the stress of others, because that's what causes it. The third one is not having any training in the emotional impact. So it comes as a shock that actually when you get home at the end of the day, you're still thinking about the people that you were caring for. You're worrying about them at night. You're thinking about how you feel about the job. And the last one is dealing with other life events. And this is what we're also really bad at. We think that we can just leave everything behind and go to work and do this incredibly emotionally demanding job that needs so much emotional energy from us, even though at home things are difficult. We've got young children, elderly parents, we're going through some kind of life event. And during that time, we need to be spending more time caring for ourselves, but we don't, because we're the type of person who always puts somebody else's needs before ours. And that's just who we are. but we have to get better at it. How does compassion fatigue make you feel? Well, there are lots of symptoms for it. The first one is that you might notice that you come home and you feel incredibly anxious all the time. You can't relax, you can't turn off. You might find that you're very hypervigilant, which means that you're always on the lookout for something else to be stressed about. And you jump if somebody drops something on the floor because your central nervous system is high alert all the time because you cannot react to the stress as it occurs to you during the day. Your body wants you to run away or fight, but you can't do either of those things. So when you're in that environment where somebody else in front of you is feeling very stressed, you don't react. And that doesn't make the stress hormones go away. It makes them build up and they stay with you and then they come out later. You can't relax. And if I asked your family members what you were like when you're like this, they will all tell me what you're like because you'll find it very difficult to relax and switch off. You feel guilty, don't you, if you spend time for yourself? You find that you're very controlling and micromanaging, and sometimes you find within environments you've got maybe a manager who's very controlling and micromanaging, and that is how he or she is managing that stress response. They're trying to control everything around them because they're feeling so out of control. You can also become very irritable and short-tempered, can't you? And something really little will set you off, yes? You get home, there's no milk, boff. You get home, you had that snack that somebody had decided that they were going to keep for themselves and they ate it while you were at work. Yes? It doesn't matter what it is. It can be wet towels on the floor. It can be dishwasher not emptied. But something will set you off and you become very irritable. And that can then lead on to you losing that empathy and compassion because you feel irritable all the time. That makes us feel very guilty because that's not who we are. We want that compassion, but actually we're feeling guilty because we're not feeling it. It can also lead to physical pain. And if you look at some of the statistics about people who are off sick, who work in health and social care, we disproportionately suffer from things like back pain and neck pain and headaches and things that are exacerbated by that stress response. So we get physical pain reaction. You can also then start to become very withdrawn and shut down. And instead of being your normal happy self, you go home and you just want to shut the curtains, watch Netflix, do not speak to me, I've had a bad day. This can also then lead you to become very overwhelmed. And I remember this from having compassion fatigue myself when I was a clinical nurse specialist, that I just felt like I couldn't do the job anymore. I was just totally overwhelmed. There wasn't enough time in the day. There wasn't enough energy left for me. So I didn't know whether I was going to be able to do it anymore. And actually, I had to start to suffer from panic attacks for my body to say to me, you need to stop and you need to take a rest and you need to look after yourself. And the final phase, if you like, of how it makes us feel is that you get completely shut down. And you lose the ability to be able to connect with other people. You often find within teams, somebody will say that that person has become very hardened to the job. You ever heard that? And they've become very shut down. And this is what's happening to them. They are basically shutting down to protect themselves. Now, the consequences of ignoring this, let's take the NHS first. If you ignore the emotional impact of what is happening, then you start to see some of these statistics, and they are quite horrifying. 10 million working days lost last year. This came from 2025. You start to see the levels of sickness. £12 billion a year the NHS is spending on sickness because they're not just spending it on sickness, they're also spending it on backfill. You have a very high staff turnover. You also end up with mental health related sickness being a third of everybody that's off sick. So that's the NHS. What about the social care sector? What about where you're working? 7 million working days lost in 2025. Sickness costing £1.5 billion a year. You're starting to see that social care has got one of the highest rated sickness rates. You know, the statistic is that if you work in health and social care, you're more likely to be sick than any other industry. Hooray! We need our own hospital. Yeah. Mental health related sickness is about 30% of absences, so we need to do something about it. In the real world, what we do at EF Training is we collect data from everybody that comes on our courses. So this is some of the things that some of the people that have come on our courses have said to us when we do that pre-course questionnaire and we ask them how they're feeling. So we do like a snapshot before we start. How are you feeling? And so what I wanted to show you was that those statistics translate into this is how people are feeling. And I think one of the saddest ones is that people think that they need to go to work because they might not be believed if they're sick. And that's not right. That shouldn't happen. But it does. And this is the sort of thing that people are telling us. So let's get proactive instead of reactive. One of the things that always wrangles me is that there's a difference between physical and emotional health and safety. With physical health and safety, everything is about preventing the thing from happening. That's why we go through training now not to hurt our back, isn't it? We wash our hands properly so we don't get infections. But with emotional health and safety, everything seems to be waiting for you to get a problem and then doing something about it. So you get people who will say, well, we've got an employee assistance program, we've got counselling, we've got mental health first aiders. Great. But in the same way that you never want to use your physical first aiders, because you've done such a good job at keeping everybody safe, it should be the same with mental health. And that's the problem that we have. So, as I said, I stepped away from my frontline role years ago now, and I decided to do something about it. And actually, my first customer was a friend of mine who ran a care home. And we did the training, and then afterwards she rang me up and she said, Jayne, I don't know what you just did, but you need to come back and do it again, because the staff really enjoyed it and it has made a difference. So this is what we do. Our course is CPD accredited and endorsed by the RCN. They took a kidney, but I'll let them have it. What we do is we talk about the biology first. What is it that's actually happening to us when we are experiencing vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue? What is going on in our bodies? Because if you understand that, in the same way that if you can help people understand what dementia is, what physical illness is, it helps people. Then we give people tools and strategies, really simple ones that are really easy to use at work and at home, because that's what we're going to use. Because there's no point in me telling you that you've got to take out a gym membership, is it? No, because you're not going to do it. But if I say to you, do some stretching exercises and this is what you can do. If we talk about what we can do to eat to make ourselves feel better, how to sleep better, those are the things that people remember, and so that's what we teach. And this is some of the quotes after the training. So you can see that it's having an impact. I didn't know what to expect, but it was fantastic. The content was credible and relatable. That's what we want. It has to be credible to you and relatable to you. Otherwise, you're not going to remember it. You're just going to walk out and forget it. Like we do with a lot of training, don't we? Which is why we have to do it over here. And the thing is as well about managing your feelings and being able to understand how to create and sustain that emotional energy that you need to be able to do the job really well. So we monitor the effectiveness. So what we do is we send everybody a pre-course questionnaire before they start. How are you feeling? Are you experiencing any of the impact of compassion fatigue? Those are the questions that we ask. We also ask, are you thinking about leaving your job and doing something else? And some of the people who we send that report to don't like the answer to that question, but it is a wake-up call. Because if 100% of your staff tick yes to that question, you need to do something about it quite quickly. All our trainers have lived experience of compassion fatigue, all right, including me. They come from lots of different sectors, health and social care. We've got somebody from the police force. We've got somebody that works as an independent practitioner. But we all have lived experience, because that's what makes it easier for us to be able to connect with you so that you can understand where we're coming from. During the training, we ask the question, and the question is, does the organisation effectively have measures in place to be able to support you? And if not, what else could they do? And we have to be careful with this, because sometimes it can turn into a little bit of a moan fest about what they're not doing. But just a couple of examples is often very simple things that make a difference. We want a staff room. We want hot food. We want better coffee. One of them was, we want a new sofa. And I spoke to the manager at lunchtime during the training, and she said, they didn't tell me they wanted a new sofa. And she went out to IKEA and bought one. And that makes a difference, because it makes people feel valued. Sometimes they don't like the answer to this question, especially if they put something in place and no one's using it. But the question is then, why is no one using it? We also do post-course evaluations. Did you like the training? Did you think there was anything missing? What else can we add? And all of that feedback goes back to the person that booked it. We get people to make a little promise to themselves. They write themselves a little care plan at the end of the training, because it's very easy when you're doing this to get very enthusiastic about all the stuff we've been talking about and say, right, from now on, I am exercising every morning. I am going to train for the London Marathon. But we asked you to write it down so that at the end you can see what you said, and then we send it back to you a few weeks later and say, how are you getting on with that? Then we send out another questionnaire at 3 months, and we ask people whether or not the training is working for them. Are you still using what we've taught you? Are you still having time for yourself? Are you doing the things that you promised to do? Because that's important. And then we provide ongoing support through our website. We have ebooks, we have a blog, we have a podcast coming soon. We have lots of different resources that go on through the rest of the time that you become a member of the EF training family. And it has a lasting impact, because the majority of the people that come on the training say that it's helped them cope better with their work. We've seen up to a 60% drop in sickness after the training. I have had people say to me, don't tell them about compassion fatigue because they'll all go off sick with it. That's not how that works. If you tell somebody how to hurt their back, they don't go and deliberately hurt their back to get time off. They do not do that with mental health. What happens is people look after themselves better because they understand why they need to, and then you see a drop in sickness rates. We see a reduction in turnover because once the organisation has embraced what we're trying to help them with, and they've put some things in place, people don't leave. One of my favourite quotes was, no one has left since the training, and they were working on a really high turnover rate. Most people say the training should be mandatory for all staff. I was interviewed a few years ago by a lovely journalist from the RCN, and she said Jayne Ellis has made it her mission that this training will be mandatory for all staff before she retires. Haha, bless her, she doesn't know how old I am. So that's me keeping on going till I'm 150. But I'm keeping going, I'm not going to give up. And then these are some of the things that people have said. So they felt that the training was good and they enjoyed it. It's transformed the way we work. Then one of the most important things is this bit here about being able to talk about how you feel. So you keep it on the agenda. You talk about it in team meetings. We talk about the impact of compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma in the meeting. So you keep it alive and you stop people being worried about talking about their emotional health. My daughter says she got her mum back. I'm going to tell you now that when I got that, I cried a little bit, because that's a really, really powerful statement. And the reason for that was that this particular person had been spending all of their time at work or worrying about work. And then suddenly, because she was able to spend a bit more time prioritizing her own care, she was able to look after herself better, therefore was there a bit more present. So, proactive care starts now. Are you ready? One of the things that we talk about is the idea of responsible selfishness. All right, you can steal this from me. This is an EF training thing, okay? Responsible selfishness means that you are caring for yourself in the same way that you're caring for other people. You're not saying that what you do is more important or what their needs are more important. You're saying that you're equal. So you're going to be responsibly selfish. So next time you're doing something for yourself, one of these things, and someone knocks on the bathroom door and says, why are you being in the bath a bit too long? I want you to say, because that strange lady that turned up at the NEC told me that I need to be a bit more responsibly selfish, okay? So these are some of the things that you can do to be responsibly selfish. You can spend more time doing the sports that you love, spending time with friends and family. You can spend just a bit of time on your own reading a book. It doesn't have to be very high level. It's just spending a little bit of time doing something that you love, that's just for you, that feels a bit selfish. And we're not very good at this, are we? But we need to get better, because in order to be able to build up and sustain that emotional energy that you need to do the job, you need to think about yourself as an emotional athlete. If you decided you were going to go and run the London Marathon, or you were going to take up a new sport, you would spend time, wouldn't you, training and getting yourself fit enough to be able to do that. And this is what we need to do when we're doing a very emotionally demanding job. We need to be able to build up and sustain that emotional fitness. It's not optional. It's something that you have to do when you're doing this type of work. And if you are a leader and you have a team, it is also your responsibility to make sure that you are checking in with your team about their emotional health and well-being, as well as their physical health and well-being, because the two are connected together. Yes? Right. Let's spend the last few minutes doing something for ourselves. So put down what you've got in your hand, and I would like you all to stand up. Everybody all right? As long as you're comfortable too, please stand up. Okay. Now, the theory behind this is that you fake it till you make it, right? If your body is relaxed, then your mind will follow, right? You do not have to do this standing up. You can do it sitting down as well. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your body into a slightly more relaxed state, and then your mind will follow, all right? Point to where you hold all your stress. Everybody's pointing to the same thing. Well done. You hold it in your shoulders. And you know what? That means that you're holding yourself tense all the time. So then that affects your back and your bottom and your legs and your neck. And the more stressed you feel, the more stressed this feels. So we need to get better at this. So the first thing we're going to do, put my clicker down, is we're going to do some breathing. You'll say, I'm already breathing, Jane, or I wouldn't be standing up. Bear with. We're going to do some breathing exercises first. I want you to put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach. All right? When you breathe in, you're going to breathe in through your nose and stick your stomach out. So breathe in, stick your stomach out. Now breathe out through your mouth slowly. And again, breathe in and breathe out. Last time. Breathe in. Breathe out. Can you feel the shoulders coming down? You have activated your vagus nerve, which is reducing your blood pressure and helping you relax. All right? Now we're going to do some stretches. Only do this is my disclaimer, if you're happy with your neck and your back, all right? If not, don't do it, or do it very slowly. Very simple. I want you to all look to the right. Count to 5. And then look the other way. All right? Now tilt your right ear to your right shoulder. Now one of the sides is going to be much stiffer than the other. Right? And there might be a click. Don't panic. It's 5. Everybody all right? Okay, very slowly, chin to chest. Excellent. And then up again. Now you need to be careful with this one. You put your right hand out in front of you and pull it across your body. You all need to go the same way. Or you'll smack each other. And then the other way. Lovely. Okay. Now hands behind your back and pull down gently and count to 10. Get nice stretch. Wonderful. Right, now very slowly, I want you to just move your arms backwards and forwards. Just swing your arms, don't hit the person behind you. Forwards and backwards. Get that shoulder muscle going. Very nice. Okay. Now, shoulders up to the ears and round. Nice. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Lovely. Right, go the other way. Breathe in. As your brain goes, whoop, and out. Okay. And now, arms all the way up. Look up and smile. And then down. Lovely. Thank you for playing. You may sit. Okay. If you do that every day, you don't need to do it in public. You can just do the sitting bit, sitting in your car, all right? Just release your shoulders, release that neck muscle, and you'll find that it's much easier to relax, all right? So, closing thoughts. Have you got that? It's an occupational hazard. In the same way that if you went up a high-rise building, you would need to make sure that you've got appropriate safety equipment. When you are looking after others, when you are using your body and your soul and your spirit and your empathy and your compassion, you need to make sure that you keep filling that reservoir up so that you've got enough for yourself, the people who love you, and the people that you're caring from. Providing proactive training, other training is available, but it's not as good as ours, that addresses the impact of compassion fatigue will help you and your teams understand what you need to do better. And I want you to promise me that you'll spend a little bit of time every day being responsibly selfish. And I'm going to hold you to that now, because I want you to hold your phone up if you want to and fill in the promises on this QR code, okay? And then I will send you something nice. I will send you a voucher to buy something nice for yourself. It's a 10% voucher off an amazing organization we work with called Out of the Box Gifts. And if you want to do it, and we can do that, but you have to make yourself a promise first. Thank you very much for coming and listening to me. And if you want some more information, then there's 2 lovely people who are going to give you a flyer on the way out. Thank you.